So the U.S. military has now admitted that their revenge/retribution drone strike after the bombing of the airport in Afghanistan was really just a massacre of civilians. So let's take a look at a top general admitting this, and then when we come back, I'll tell you why it is they did.
General, this is a complete and utter failure. Can you explain how this possibly could have happened?
Well, so this particular strike, it certainly was a terrible mistake, and we certainly regret that. And I've been very clear that we take full responsibility for it. At the same time, we were carrying on a number of complex operations designed to defend ourselves. We conducted a strike a couple of days before up in Nangarhar that was very successful. We conducted other operations across the battle space to defend ourselves during this very difficult 48-hour period when so many imminent threats were manifest. So while I agree with it, this strike certainly did not come up to our standards, and I profoundly regret it. I would not qualify the entire operation in those terms. I would reject a parallel between this operation and an over-the-horizon strike against an ISIS-K target. Again, because we will have an opportunity to further develop the target in time, to look at pattern of life. That time was not available to us because this was imminent threat to our forces. It's important that I emphasize that. We did not have the luxury of time to develop pattern of life and to do a number of other things. We struck under the theory of reasonable certainty. Probably our strikes in Afghanistan going forward will be under a higher standard. That's a policy matter, not a purely military matter. But I don't think you should draw any conclusions about our ability to strike in Afghanistan against ISIS-K targets in the future based on this particular strike.
Well, isn't that mighty convenient? Don't draw any conclusions based on this. This is the outlier. This isn't the norm. Except that's not true, because what we know from Daniel Hale, the drone whistleblower, is even under Obama, it was a 90% civilian death rate. 90%. That's why Daniel Hale is locked up right now. Because Daniel Hale came out there and told everybody the facts. And then, of course, the establishment threw the book at him because that thoroughly and deeply embarrasses them. Oh, you're leaking classified top secret information. Yeah, but what if that's information that we should know? Because it shines light and gives transparency to an important issue. Our tax dollars are being used to massacre civilians routinely. Well, doesn't matter. He technically broke the law in telling people the truth, so now he's locked up. Now, that was under Obama. 90% civilian drone death rate. 90% of the time we get the wrong people. Under Trump, he increased drone strikes 432% and also got rid of the few remaining guardrails and rules that existed. So he was like, rules of engagement, making sure we're getting the right targets, gone, get rid of it. And oh yeah, let's drastically increase the number of drone strikes. That's why we had record civilian casualties in Afghanistan in 2019. Because of that. And this idea that we've all been taught, which is total propaganda, BS, our laser-guided precision munitions can kill a mosquito from 100 miles away. Total nonsense. It's not true. It's not true at all. Now, why did he do this? Why did he bring this up? Why are they admitting it? Very simply, there was a big expose that I believe it was the New York Times wrote a piece on it and explained killed 10 civilians, 7 children. Now, by the way, we knew this in the day or two after the strike because that's what all the evidence was saying on the ground. It took way longer than that for a mainstream U.S. outlet to go, okay, yeah, we looked into it and that's true. By the way, that's a problem in and of itself right there. So it's only when the New York Times or the Washington Post or one of the big outlets admits something that the Pentagon feels pressure and the intelligence agencies feel pressure to be like, okay, our bad. That's a huge problem. Again, we reported on it immediately after because that's what all the evidence on the ground was saying. You just killed children. You just killed an aid worker. But, you know, it's easy to dismiss, oh, the fringe people, the rabble, the peasants. They're not official sources. Well, it turns out the so-called unofficial sources were correct. And by the way, they're almost always universally more honest. So the only reason why they admitted this, guys, if the New York Times didn't write that article, which it's very possible they weren't going to, if they didn't write that article, they never would have admitted it. The Pentagon, the intelligence agencies, the generals, they never would have admitted it. They would have been like, let's try to get away with this. Let's be quiet. They haven't really called us out yet, or at least we haven't officially been called out yet by the mainstream outlets. So there's a number of incredibly disturbing problems here. They would have hidden it if they could. And thankfully, the New York Times actually did something good, which is rare. And as a result of that, they have to go, whoopsies, are bad. Now, by the way, they're asked, hey, what about, are you going to like pay these people? Or allow them to come to the U.S., the family members of these people? And they're like, yeah, you know, we're looking into that. We want to do that. We'll see. Yeah, I'm sure. I'll give you a couple guesses how that's going to unfold. I bet they're not going to, be granted refugee status. I bet they're not going to be paid any sort of reparations. But now the U.S. military, since they were caught red-handed, they're like, yeah, totally. We're sort of looking into that. So relax, be cool. We'll take a look and we'll see what happens. But I mean, when they say, this isn't indicative of the rest of the war, it exactly is that. It is that. And if you believe that that's the case, well, then obviously you'll turn on the military-industrial complex and our imperial wars. And they can't have that. Now, by the way, the overwhelming majority of the American public is already against these wars. And if they knew the facts of what's really going on, and this is a good indication of what's really going on, even more people would be against it, and they'd be more strident in their opposition to it. So they're trying to cover their tracks on the way out, even though they're admitting, whoopsies. And by the way, is it really a whoopsies? I've made this point before. Because Sam Harris used to make the argument about intentions. Oh, since we don't mean to do harm, therefore it doesn't count in the same way that like a terrorist who is purposely killing civilians counts for them. But the fact of the matter is, let's say you wake up and you're driving to school, you're in high school or college or whatever, and you kill somebody with your car on day one, driving to school. Now, you could say, that's not murder, it's manslaughter, I didn't mean to do it. Okay, fair enough. Let's say the second day you kill somebody with your car. And then the third day you kill 3 people with your car. And then the fourth day you kill another 5 people with your car. At a certain point, is it legitimate for you to go, listen, it's not murder? Because every single time this is happening, I didn't mean it. My intentions are pure. My intentions are not to hurt anybody. At some point, people are going to call bullshit on you, aren't they? They're going to go, I don't know if you can make that claim when you're on like your 12th dead body. And that's the point about the U.S. military. That, people would hesitate to use the word terrorism to talk about this. When you're doing violence for a political or religious reason, that is the definition of terrorism. We were doing violence for a political reason here. It is what it is. You might not like the fact that if we use definitions objectively, it applies to us as well, but that's exactly what we're going to do because we're adults here. And we don't play the game of, my fifis, we always mean well. Mommy and Poppy said that I'm the good guys, and so I'm always the good guys no matter what I do. Tee-hee-hee. That is the kind of thinking that neocons and imperialists and hawks, that's the trap they fall into, and American exceptionalists, that's the trap they fall into. That's their kind of thinking. And it's grotesque, and it's dumb. It's just really dumb. So anyway, he said, we didn't have time because it was an imminent threat. We didn't have the luxury of evaluating the evidence. Well, though that should never be a thing anywhere ever, period, for anybody. I didn't have time, so I had to bomb. I had to murder. I had to shoot. I had to kill. No. You need to make damn sure you're getting the right people. Damn sure. But that's the thing. They just wanted the story, the cover story. Oh, yeah, we got the ISIS-K operative. Now, by the way, final point. Think of all the outlets, the mainstream U.S. outlets. When that strike first happened, every single outlet was like, U.S. responds and kills ISIS-K planner. Every single outlet said it. Guys, that alone shows you how broken mainstream media is. That they all said it right in the wake of the attack, the day of, where people were killed. The U.S. media across the board was like, we killed an ISIS-K operative now, so we got revenge for the airport bombing. So none of them did any verification, did any fact-checking, looked at any evidence or data or proof. None of them have sources on the ground. They were just acting as stenographers to the Pentagon and the intelligence agencies and the deep state. Basically saying exactly what the military-industrial complex wanted them to say. That's how you know how terrible they are. Now, every once in a while, as my dad used to say, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then. Every now and then, like the New York Times blew the whistle and said, actually, no, you killed civilians. But these people and these institutions are fundamentally broken. They're broken. And it's a goddamn shame when randos on Twitter and assholes in new media like myself with a loud mouth and a political commentary show, we're running laps around them. We're way ahead of them. We were telling you that they killed civilians way before. It's really disgusting, man. I don't want to be the more serious one in the room, because I'm not. I'm an asshole. I joke around. I have fun. I give my opinion. You know, I'm obviously rough around the edges, and I'm not for many of those in polite society. But it's a shame that we're way ahead of them. Every independent left-wing new media outlet is way ahead of them. What does that say about how broken that system is? And what does it say about the fact that all the institutions try to hold us back and promote them? I mean, think about the way, you know, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, how the mainstream stuff is promoted relentlessly and our stuff is held back. The algorithm screws us. Meanwhile, we were right about the drone strike and they were wrong. They did the propaganda. They lied. Is CNN going to get us channel pulled because they lied about that originally? Because they were stenographers to the Pentagon? Because they were spreading fake news? That's what that is. That was fake news when they said we killed an ISIS-K planner. Is there going to be any punishment? Of course not. Of course not. The system is broken in so many ways, man. And I feel terrible for... It was an aid worker who was killed. There was a bunch of children who were killed. I feel terrible for everybody who was negatively affected by this. Just an apology is not enough, by the way. You know, I actually think reparations should be paid and they should be brought to the U.S. as refugees. That's the very least that we could do. And by the way, there was an article where somebody talked to them and they said exactly that. Pay us and let us come to the U.S. The least that can be done. This is as bad as it gets. But unfortunately, there were so many situations like this throughout the entire war. This is indicative of what the war was. This is exactly indicative of it. You know, imagine jacking natural resources, the imperialist chessboard being us against China and Russia, that being a main concern, military-industrial complex profits, all that's going on, exploitation and imperialism, and the entire time they tell you, oh no, we're just protecting freedom and democracy and human rights and we're the world police and we're killing terrorists or whatever. Does it look like that? You know the answer. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.